Hello, I'm joined by Earl, the CEO of Safran Helicopter Engines UK. So tell us from a helicopter perspective how you're moving towards the 2050 net zero target.
So in a number of ways, from a helicopter engine's perspective, we're working on the technology, as are a lot of other engine manufacturers, to make sure that our technology is efficient as possible. In that way, we can reduce the fuel consumption of those engines, and our engines that we're working on at the moment are likely to produce 20% less fuel consumption than previous iterations of the engines, which translates directly to 20% less emissions. So that's the first tranche. The second tranche is working closely with our airframe partners to ensure that the helicopter as a whole is as efficient as possible, and therefore the fuel consumption is as low as possible. And the third tranche is working very proactively on the use of sustainable aviation fuels in the future.
And tell us about how you're working with SAF fuels at the moment.
So a number of ways. We've been working very closely with some of our operators. It can be a little bit disconcerting, making the leap to SAF for operators, as you can imagine, for the reasons of availability of fuel and cost. But we're working closely with them to give them the comfort that it's safe to do so with the engines, that there are ways of doing it cost effectively to start making a difference as soon as possible. So, for example, we're working with ADAC in Germany, which is an EMS operator, and they've made the switch across to using SAF on a permanent basis on some of their fleet, which is great news, and they've been doing it for a whole year nearly now, and they've had no problems. It's working really well for them. We're working really closely with Airbus as well. We did an extended test campaign on one of our Makila engines on the ground at 100% SAF, so making the shift from the 50%, which is allowed today, to 100%. It went very successfully, and it allowed a test flight of an Airbus H225 in July last year on 100% SAF, and that was the first one worldwide as far as we're aware. And also with Leonardo, another big airframer, we did a demo flight on the AW149 helicopter in the UK, which is the helicopter they're putting forward for the UK MOD's new medium helicopter in the future. So they were successfully able to do a test flight using SAF. Third area is in our facilities. So we do a lot of engine testing, as you can imagine, in our facility down in Fareham. And we decided, because we're trying to take the lead in the market on the use of SAF, that we would make the switch to sustainable aviation fuel on a permanent basis in our facility down in Fareham. So since January, we've been operating on SAF at 42%, which is the maximum you can get on the market at the moment, on a permanent basis, which we're really proud of.
Brilliant work. You should be proud. How was that moment?
It was great, actually. The engines that we test, the majority of the time, are the RTM 322 engines for the Royal Navy Merlins. So we were able to invite the Director of Helicopters for the UK MOD down to launch the very first test. So the CEO of our organisation came over from France, Keith Bethel, the Director of Helicopters from UK MOD came along, and we had a ceremonial switch on of the first test using SAF. So it was a great occasion for us, for the MOD and for the business.
And why are partnerships so important in working towards a net zero future?
So I think it's really important for all elements of the industry to work together, because no one single area can do it alone. And a good example I can give you on the back of what we've been talking about on sustainable aviation fuel is our partnerships with Neste and Total Energy. If we leave individual parts of the industry to work alone, it might not necessarily create the best optimum solution for all of us. So we're investing with those fuel companies in their development of future fuels to make sure that they not only meet the requirements for our engines to deliver the highest performance, but also maximise the potential for reducing emissions. And in doing that, we can iterate the composition of those fuels to make sure that they're best suited for the industry as a whole.
And what are the unique challenges that you're facing in the helicopter sector?
I guess there's a lot of question marks around the helicopter sector in the future. There's a lot of talk about hybrid electric, pure electric, eVTOL type vehicles out there, and people are saying, are we going to see helicopters in the future? And we firmly believe that there is a role for helicopters due to the unique nature of what they can do in terms of their power to weight ratio that they can deliver, the payload, the range that they can deliver over very specific scope of activities. So eVTOL absolutely is going to have its place in the future, but we believe helicopters, particularly the larger ones, are going to be around for a long time yet.
And when you think of the skies in 2035, how do helicopters sit in that vision?
Still playing a really important role, I think, from a military perspective, from a public service sector, emergency management and policing type roles. I think there's going to still be a very important role for helicopters to play alongside future technologies and working on delivering helicopter services sustainably in the future is what we all need to focus on.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much.